Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another fantastic episode of T3PO Live. My name is VashSky, your host for today. I already see some people joining us in the chat right there. Very much appreciate that. Very much so. We got Little Mouse 77 right there. We got the one, the only, the Theme Park Wizard, which I do actually join Theme Park Wizard on a fairly regular occurrence schedule on Theme Park Universe. We go over everything theme park related, not just for Disney, but across the various proprietors in North America, maybe even the world. So definitely stay tuned for that at Theme Park Wizard. You can go ahead and subscribe to that channel if you're so inclined. But we've got an amazing array of both theme park and entertainment related stories today, but mostly theme park. Got a lot of theme park stories going on. Obviously, the Hurricane Milton should be making landfall tomorrow, so that is obviously a big story, and our hearts go out to everybody that's going to be affected by that storm. I'm sure you got the lowdown from the pro show earlier. It's going to be a big one, folks. We have a story related to that, but we're going to try to keep it light. We're going to try to keep it friendly for y'all. My thought process regarding all of that is not to obviously dismiss or downplay the severity of it or anybody that might be affected, but I take the tact that, hey, if I'm going through something like that, I like to not think about it, and I'd like to, engage with content that might alleviate some of my worry, my mental worry that I might have. So we're going to go ahead and try to provide that for you. And to provide that thoroughly, we have an amazing panel for you. Starting off things, we have the amazing, the one, the only, Lou Wasserman's Ghost, and also too, Nolan Thunder joining us for today. Guys,
wow,
welcome to the show.
If you wanted to alleviate worries, you sure picked a couple of worries. But
well,
I mean, every time I'm on here, you're worried I'm going to mention some ancient Teutonic dictator. So
yes, from the bygone.
You literally invited people with the names Ghost and Thunder in their names. This might have been a really bad idea.
Well,
You know what? That's a fair point. And even Vash the Stampede, or the Humanoid Typhoon, as he's known in the anime. There, man. You know what? Nolan, you have a good point here. I never really thought about it that way.
hey,
Speak.
we can
please.
suffer storms, so you don't have to.
Well, if I could take that burden, I absolutely would. But you know, the burden I cannot take on right now. Apparently, I am just not in a position to take on $23 egg sandwiches, $26 cake slices, $32 hamburger revealed on Cake Bake Shop menu at Walt Disney World. This is a location that's been in the works for, I think, a couple of years now, ever since the ESPN Club closed in 2022. And, whoa, this is a very expensive location, it would appear. Lou, we were going over the menu before the show.
Oh, my God.
Your thoughts on all this, because I know you were a foodie, and I know you were actually a professional reviewer for some time. Going to distinctive locations across not only the Southern California area, but also the country. Your thoughts on all this?
Well, apparently this outfit exists off campus, so to speak. And apparently these prices are basically take their other menu, throw $10 an item on, and you're close.
Ooh.
So that might tell us what the cost of doing business at Disney World is. Whether you get a patronage of numbers big enough to make up for the sort of gut level rejection of, are you kidding me, from some of these? I don't know. I mean, you mentioned a couple that are obvious and in the headline, but how about
gets worse,
crab
folks.
cakes? Crab cakes for $52.
Ooh.
That better have the little guy from The Little Mermaid in it for that price.
What was
Because
the,
your bank balance is soon going to be under the sea. Darling,
what
it's
was-
better. And, well, maybe it isn't better. Anyway.
what was the crab cakes eggs Benedict there? Oh yeah, $42 right here. You can see that on the
How
menu
many of you
posted.
parents out there are going to be buying your kid off the kids menu a PB&J sandwich for $18?
$18.
Or salmon sliders for $22.
Ooh.
It's a
Yeah.
little insane. It's a little insane.
Recipe for
remember a
disaster.
I remember a
please
few
go ahead. Nolan.
years ago when me and my mother went to Disney Springs in early 2020 before everything changed and such. We were going up to this one restaurant. We decided not to go to it because we felt underdressed. I remember our meme that we've had, so to speak, for the past few years was we saw a steak there and it was $70. I can only imagine how much that is now, because these foods, I didn't know PB&J was now considered a fine delicacy.
Well, but that's the question. If it was the best PB&J sandwich you ever imagined in your wildest dreams, let alone your kids' dreams, would it ever be worth that much?
You know, I love my children very much, Lou, but they're not worth it. No, actually, I have no kids. But look, I mean, that is an exorbitant amount for PB&J right there. Recipe for disaster: exorbitant menu prices, 40% cake slice markups revealed for the Cake Bake Shop at Disney's Boardwalk. Like I was saying before, this has been in the works for a couple of years now. This is why Theme Park Wizard is making that joke. Prices are that high because it's accounting for the inflation in 2035 when it eventually opens. That is correct. It is.
Ash,
It is.
And by the way, this is at the boardwalk,
Yes.
which means
Walt
you
Disney
got to
World
pay
property.
to park there, right?
Oh, that's a good point.
So if they're going to get you for what, $20,
Mhm.
$25 to park your car? Well,
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing too, Lou. This isn't a location at Disney Springs where parking is included or free, I should say. This is a location that's
no,
next to the boardwalk.
no, Vash. You should go back to included because it's not free because the taxpayer, that's
the
us,
taxpayer,
paid for
yes.
it. Remember those garages under the Reedy Creek deal?
Yep.
When they
Grape and
illegally
orange,
sold,
yeah.
sold municipal bonds to pay for those garages?
That's a fair point.
Mr. Vash, here's a question for you. For that
Sure.
kind of price, do they at least cut the crust off of the PB&J?
I would expect them to do whatever.
Well, there's a
you
10%
requested with a
surcharge
PBJ
for that,
price.
Nolan. Come on.
Oh man, got us with the surcharge.
I mean, they had to hire an expert. They had to hire somebody who couldn't cut themselves, but could cut off the crust on the BBJ sandwich.
Oh man, this has been in the works for quite some time. The charcuterie
And that's
board
a
is
good
$10
question.
more
Why
expensive.
does it take this long?
I
You paint it, you put some tables and chairs in, you make some PBJ sandwiches, and you go to work.
I don't know. I have no idea why it takes this long to construct anything on Walt Disney World property, especially. I mean, the regulations are obviously more severe than they were before, but they're not that severe. It's not like building in California, that's for sure. But for some reason, not only are we getting a slow construction, but increased costs associated with it as well. Charcuterie board $10 more expensive than other cake bake shop locations. The pesto burrata is $6 more expensive. The quiches are $10 more expensive. The sandwich is $5 to $8 more expensive. Even the peanut butter and jelly off the children's menu enjoys a 40% markup, like you were saying, Lou. And then at Walt Disney World than it does in other locations. The chocolate cake, $26. From what I understand, a slice for that. Man, oh man, this is a lot. And I think, Lou, you keyed on a very interesting point here. That does tell you the markup of the Walt Disney World product, as opposed to something that's off location. This brings me to a related story here. Porto's, we know, is going to be making its debut at Downtown Disney in the West Coast at Disneyland Resort in 2025. And I just kind of wonder, okay, well, Porto's already exists on Beach Boulevard down there in Buena Park next to Knott's Berry Farm.
And the
How much is the
original's up in
markup going to be
Glendale,
for a
not far
location
from
like
the
that?
studio.
Right?
Right.
Right. There are
Well-
multiple locations all around.
I mean, there's some little things that I, as a disgustingly overeducated food and wine guy, know. For example, if you go down to the red wines at this place, you find a couple from something called Bouchard Ein et Fils. Now, Bouchard Père et Fils, Père meaning father, Bouchard the last name of the family, et Fils sons. So Bouchard Père et Fils is a pretty well-known and highly respected Pinot Noir from France. This is Bouchard Ein et Fils, A-I-N-E. And when I go look up A-I-N-E, a word I've never encountered before, it's an Irish god or goddess. How did she get to France and make the wine? I mean, somebody hopes you'll confuse them, you know?
I don't
Is that
know.
wine cheaper at least?
Well, no. $15 a glass, $56 a bottle for that.
That's actually not super terrible for alcohol on Walt
It
Disney
isn't.
World property.
It isn't. But it's that they're buying not even a B brand, but an unknown brand from somewhere that's trying to rip off the resemblance of their name to the French.
You can see that salad is spelled with an E.
And soup with an E too. So would you like some soup or some salad? We only charge $14 extra for the extra E.
That's what makes it all worth it, Lou.
Are they going to have a comedy host with stuffed puppets named Saladi Sales in the lobby instead of Soupy?
I don't know. I have no idea, but I thought this was a really fun story to kick things off because, man, oh man, who would actually pay for this? I don't know. Perhaps, you're somebody
Well, we were
who
talking about,
takes
they
pleasure
got
from
to
it.
have people to make it and people to store it and people.
Right.
But then I thought, no, they don't, because for the really high items, they're never going to sell one. So they don't have to really stock it. They just have to put it on the menu to give
Sure.
themselves some faux acquired elevation and selectivity. But I still don't see how this takes years.
And
There was a restaurant there before. So
yes, and like you said, Lou, before the show, the larger the menu, the more training that you might have to have, at least for distinct items. But then you have to obviously keep those items in stock, so it takes more space in order to store those items. And how can you maintain the quality with such a diverse and large menu?
Well, and not to mention, as we were saying, go look at the tea list and see all the details They tell you more about the tea than they do about other things. And I said, that's looking forward to the fact that the people they hire as waiters are not going to be up to the memorization of that stuff. When you ask, well, what is a so-and-so? Look at the menu, it's described. So this reminds me of the comedian Jackie Mason, God bless him. He did a thing like this. He said, what do you think? Blackened, is a big deal. It's gourmet. He says, it means boint. He says, they boint the food and they wanted to sell it anyway. So they made up a thing.
I'll tell you, I really hope.
And he says, sushi. What's that? He says, there's two guys who figured out how to open a restaurant without having to buy a stove. So.
I'll tell you, I hope that stuff there is top tier, though, because I'll tell you, a few steps away, there's a pizza joint over there nearby, and that is some of the best stuff you can get at Disney World. I said it. I love the boardwalk, and I believe this used to be the ESPN's restaurant that used to be there. I had the luxury of actually getting to try out the ESPN spot they had there prior, and it was like a cool sports bar. But I can't deny that this might fit a bit more with the rest there, but there's already kind of some like cake type places there. So I don't know. I hope it lives up to its prices because my God.
And I'll say this about that boardwalk pizza there. I've heard some stories about that boardwalk pizza. Wink. If you know, you know. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on there. Well,
what did you put in my food, Vash?
I'll tell you after the show. Anyway, but
you're gonna ruin my life, people.
You don't know it, but you ate at the terminus of Moana's Journey of Water.
Speaking of terrible items on the menu, at least on the box office menu, not doing so well here for Joker 2. We covered this just a little bit on Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you. Great show about the history of MGM. Highly recommend. But this right here, Joker 2 earns $40 million in the film's domestic opening weekend, almost 3 times lower than the first film's opening weekend and lower than the opening weekends of both The Flash, The Marvels, almost the same as The Morbius. Budget was $200 million for this film. It also earned the lowest cinema score ever recorded for a comic book movie, the worst word of mouth ever for a comic book movie. Not so good right there. Also, too, we have this kind of infographic that goes into some of the details of this film. I thought this was pretty interesting because apparently Todd Phillips, I believe the director, had free reign with Warner Brothers wanting him to do his thing, and the film had no test screenings. That's, if you have a visionary director who doesn't need test screenings, that's fine. If it's Christopher Nolan or whatever, hey, you know what? I'll trust him. But $200 million for this, maybe it did need a little bit of test screening here. Idea came to Joaquin Phoenix in a dream. Okay. Contemplated putting on a Broadway show before committing to making a movie. Lady Gaga signed on before the script was even finished. New boss.
Just edit in a punch sound effects every time Vash makes a point on how doomed this movie is. Like that?
Yes! There you go. New DC boss James Gunn had zero involvement, gave notes, but Todd Phillips didn't use them.
To put it another way,
please.
A wise man once said this.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
That is very true, Lou. That is very, very true. Sometimes you can't. And I guess we're learning that right now. Let's see here. The film had a budget of $200 million, including $20 million salary for Joaquin Phoenix himself and $12 million just for Lady Gaga. The musical aspect was largely downplayed in the marketing, with director Todd Phillips at first insisting it wasn't one. Oh, well, that'll help its prospects for sure.
Sold it as a guy. It would have done more money as a Gaga concert film.
Yes,
sort of the punk version of Taylor Swift show.
Would have been cheaper too.
Yeah.
Well, if you have Lady Gaga, you might as well lean into it. And yeah, I think Malou is correct. I think it might have made more money as a Gaga concert film. Christopher Nolan reportedly changed the ending for the first movie because it ended with Joaquin Phoenix's Joker carving himself a smile, and there was no resistance for this from the sequel for doing the same thing, with Nolan leaving Warner Brothers. Todd Phillips was secluded on a ranch during the opening weekend. That's healthy. Film was panned by fans and critics, currently holding a 33% critic score and a 31% audience score, respectively.
What they didn't tell you
Rotten
is that
Tomatoes.
ranch is adjacent to one of the Chinese parks.
Oh, it's one of those ranches, Lou.
Yeah,
Oh no, that got dark real fast.
Whoopie tie
It needs $450 million globally to break even. It may lose the studio over $150 million. And as we reported on that Park Place coverage, Warner Brothers Discovery is already in $40 billion in debt. Can't be a good day for David Zaslav and the crew there. Nolan, you going to see this film? Lou, you're excited.
No.
I can see that.
No, well, if anything, I would go to see it just to know if it's as bad as everybody says. Once it's already a lost cause, it's not.
See, I'm a more trusting soul than you, Nolan. I'll take their word for it. It's that bad and won't go waste my time.
I kind of want to be entertained by the
appreciate
badness.
your dedication to the science and your dedication to doing the research in person. But personally, I think I'd rather have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for $18.
If I'm going to pay something overpriced, I'd rather sit at a movie theater for overpriced popcorn, thank you, and get the little Joker cup that makes me regret seeing the movie.
Oh, wait, you mean it has its own popcorn bucket? Oh, forget it. It's a hit.
Yeah,
by modern standards.
Vash, does this one have a popcorn bucket?
Oh, well, let me look it up and see real fast. I didn't see a popcorn bucket online, but hey, it could be wrong.
Doesn't it make you wonder? You know, it's like, what do they call it? The island of lost toys. Somewhere there's a warehouse with, in 1,000 years, time travelers will come from even the further future and find this dusty old warehouse, the size of the one at the end of Indiana Jones, and open the door, and it'll be nothing but popcorn buckets from failed enterprises at Disney and everywhere. And Warner.
Oh my gosh. Warner Brothers. I haven't heard that.
The island of the lost popcorn buckets.
Let me just see here. Oh, I see.
Oh,
okay. So I do have a popcorn bucket right here. But I don't think it's in the form that you would necessarily expect here. Apparently it's in the form of Nurtec. What? Which is used to treat migraines.
Oh,
it's a meme, folks. It's not.
So
real,
the movie gives you the migraine, and the popcorn takes it away.
There you go.
Well, that's synergy.
I hear they throw in complimentary earmuffs to every showing.
So yeah, well, perhaps they should.
It's a stinker. Next.
It's a stinker. It is really, really bad. I think this is the official popcorn bucket right here. If anybody was at all interested in this,
that actually is pretty cool.
The Rolling Stones copyright attorney called, and he's not happy. But
that's a fair point.
You see his copyright attorney, and he just has one of those Joker smiles. Oh no, it's too late. I have a little theory about this movie, if you don't mind me sharing.
Please.
Am I the only one who thinks the director really didn't care about this movie? Like, he got paid and he's like, because we've seen before in the past, wasn't it Gremlins, where they basically made it to where they weren't going to make any more Gremlins films because he didn't even want to make it in the first place, the new batch? Am I correct on that?
You might be correct on that. Yeah, I know that the director Todd Phillips was talking about how they interpreted the first film wrong. It's actually about I guess the sexuality of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. That's what it was really about, and it wasn't this. Yeah, very strange. So perhaps this was a film that this director wanted to make, but I don't know. Maybe.
So in other words,
got out of hand.
These people, and I don't mean just the director, but everybody who backed him in this, they thought America's vast movie-going audience had as their number one priority finding out exactly the parameters of Joaquin Phoenix's sexuality. I, for one, could care less. Silly me.
I don't disagree with you, Lou. I don't know what we're thinking here.
It must have failed because I still don't know his sexuality.
Terrible. Absolutely.
That's all right. We're making movie 3 just for you.
Oh, boy. Let's not throw good
Joker
money
3.
after bad.
He's a what?
Oh boy. You know, how do I transition out of this? Speaking of good money after bad and maybe losing a little bit along the way here, we've got to talk about, unfortunately, Hurricane Milton. But well, we're gonna try to keep it broad that way. You know, we don't get mired in the what is going to be a torrential downpour coming here. Looks like here Benzinga has the story. Disney faces. Whoop, give me a second. Disney faces a $150 million to $200 million blow from from Hurricane Milton. Attendance set to drop 6%, says Goldman Sachs.
I didn't read the article, obviously.
Mhm.
See there? Year over year. Now, that means not 6% from what it would have been without the hurricane, which already was probably 4% or more less than a year ago because all the attendance is down anyway.
Right.
So this is a way of giving an excuse for it.
Correct. And that's kind of the angle that I want to take with this. Again, the Disney company is going to use any excuse it possibly can in order to hide behind or shield themselves from the criticism of their decisions of a lack of attendance and lack of spending, which will be reflected in, I think, these earnings results here. I believe the earnings call is scheduled for November right now, and so I'm assuming
you know what
this might be reflected in there.
There's another one of my classic old jokes that only people like me remember is about the three old guys in the home talking about their life and their business ups and downs. And the one guy talks about, I remember in 19 whatever, when we had that horrible, horrible fire that wiped out the warehouse and cost us all that money. And the second guy says, yeah, we had one like that too. It was a terrible, terrible structural default in the building and it fell down. And the third guy talks about, that's nothing. We had the flood of all floods. And the other guys interrupt him and say, excuse me, can we ask you a question? Yeah. How do you start a flood? It's like when Disney says, well, we had a hurricane. Oh, I see. And this was a CGI hurricane or it's just the excuses. People weren't going anyway. And maybe people, and I wonder if are they letting people cancel or do they have to reschedule for another time? Because I wonder how many people who had been having their doubts could say, hey, this is my excuse to get my money back.
I think they are letting people cancel their hotel bookings without a cancellation fee attached, which is a nice move by Disney to do. And folks, just to understand, if we come off as lighthearted when talking about this, that's not to downplay.
No, hell no. Yes. But my point is,
sure,
that the thing that's unique or has been about Disney more than any other travel proposition I can think of is how far in advance people book these things.
Yeah.
Because they want to make sure they get a certain eligibility to get a restaurant reservation or
absolutely
something. And they want to go in a peak season when the kids are all out of school and they want to get the reservation in. And
minimum 3 months in advance, probably.
Yeah. Oh, at least maybe a lot more. If you did that and you were doing that in the blue skies of relative, you're not somebody who follows this stuff, who watches our channel, and shame on you that you don't. But because the general media has finally had to confess to the problems there, whether it's Tiana or attendance or whatever, and you were starting to have second thoughts and you were stuck. If this offered you an exit, some of you are going to run for it. So, in other words, the cancellations would be worse even than from a hurricane in general, because people who were blissfully ignorant of the problems at Disney when they made the reservation might now be aware of them and wishing they could find a way to get their money back and go somewhere else. So,
Oh, indeed. Goldman Sachs estimates Hurricane Milton could cause at least $150 to $200 million hit to Disney's Parks and Experiences division in fiscal Q1 of 2025. Domestic attendance at Walt Disney World is projected to decline 6% year over year, up from an earlier 2% decline estimate due to the storm. As Hurricane Milton barrels toward Central Florida, Goldman Sachs estimated that the classified Category 5 storm could have an adverse impact of up to $200 million.
I'm just saying, how much of this is Hurricane Milton and how much is Hurricane Bob?
That's a great turn of phrase right there, by the way. And I agree with you. I think they are hiding behind some of this stuff, and maybe the financial institutions are doing it on their behalf. And Michael,
it's the natural extension from, well, it's too hot in Florida in the summer. That's why people aren't going.
Yes. It's always the weather. I do agree with that wholeheartedly. Go and Shogi. The hurricane can cost one whole acolyte. Apparently it can. And that just, I mean, if it is all hurricane related.
Now, what if the Weather Service were all Disney fans and they decided to start offering these definitions that way? Well, we've got a category acolyte storm bearing down on northern Florida. And what's worse, out in the Atlantic, still brewing, is a potential Agatha.
Oh, man. That's tough. I will say that's probably a more accurate description. Go ahead, Ellen.
I would love to see like how the news media would spin this if they were as biased to Disney as they are with their movies. It's like Florida under attack from a hurricane. Meanwhile, local Disney World has light rain going on.
Yeah. I will say a loose description of how they should categorize these things probably very accurate. Analyst Michael Ng has drawn comparisons to past hurricanes, particularly Hurricane Irma in 2017, which resulted in significant operational disruptions for Walt Disney Company Disney. Irma caused a $100 million hit to operating income and led to a 3 percentage point decline in domestic park attendance. The storm forced the closure of Walt Disney World for 2 days, along with multiple cancellations of cruise ship itineraries. They I'm guessing, assumed the same here. Also, too, there's already disruptions in that I believe Orlando International Airport and MCO are both reporting that they are, I think, canceling flights, or at least will have delays with their airplane activity coming in and out of the region.
The last thing that the airlines want is to have a bunch of planes stuck there because the airport is so destroyed they can't take off.
Sure. Absolutely.
So there are those considerations. I mean, that are made by these airline companies independent of what Disney does or doesn't do.
And this is in addition, by the way, to what we know are going to be likely very down quarters upcoming here for Disney. They're already going to, they've already said, I should say, Hugh Johnston, that is, has said that there's going to be a soft next few quarters in the pipeline there, which is not good. We have seen reports of severe discounting, both in the hotels and some of the major discounts associated with those, but also too, there's now a $50 kids deal that is coming back on the West Coast, and we're going to be reading a MiceChat article here later in this live stream, but they assume that to offset some of this, there might be higher prices involved with at least the Disneyland product out there. So they're trying to brace for financial impact here, it would appear, and this hurricane is not going to do them any favors.
Well,
so
on the one hand, they have to do this, announce this, plan this, because they're a public company. On the other hand, we know what they'll do from past experience. They'll add even more to the price quicker.
Yes.
It basically is saying, hey, if your house was wiped out or your business is closed for 4 months rebuilding, we're sorry, but come to Disney World with the money you don't have. But we want ours back now, all at once. So when you come, it'll be 3% higher or whatever.
Yeah. I think I I think we can assume that they're going to try to make up the deficit of what they're going to incur in the next couple of quarters any way they can. One, by higher ticket prices, but also two, I think that those rumors of a premium version of Lightning Lane coming online, I think are sound, and it might be as early as this month where they might debut that as well.
And the thing that'll tell us, somebody should do a study and see when the words Hurricane Melvin get higher on the list of excuses made for everything wrong than COVID.
Yeah.
You know. Well, but that was the quarter we had so and so. You know.
I think you're right. I think you're spot on.
They're an excuse-making outfit. So.
Indeed, they are. Indeed, they are.
You know, the logical answer is, well, then, if you didn't want to chance your business on volatile weather patterns of the last 5 million years, as far as we know, maybe you should have picked someplace other than Florida to build it in the first place.
Indeed.
And I'm not saying there is such a place. Everybody's got weather of one kind or another, but still.
Pick your problems no matter what location you pick. You could put it on the moon, you'd still have problems. You know, it's like trying to downplay it as much. It seems like in the long run it was a good choice, but ideally, hopefully they get through this okay, and hopefully everyone in the vicinity is going to be safe, and hopefully we get the best results possible. Because as much as we dog on Disney, you never want to see something like this in terror. Like, we all know what happened to Six Flags New Orleans, and I don't think we'll have anything that bad, but hopefully everything comes around okay.
I think it will. But unfortunately, it looks like people will have to incur those additional fees that come along with that. Never thought I would see the day where families would have to put $15,000 on credit cards for a family Disney trip. It's sickening.
Too true, Nita. And what if they did that, and then this happened, and then they didn't have the room left on the credit card to put the new windows in the house that they needed to replace that were blown out, or the furniture that is now a sodden mess, or whatever. You know, we all have choices and priorities, but man, this was never that big a potential game killer. You know,
we will go over a couple of stories related to people using government funds, let's say, in order to pay for trips, and also to some bad investments by the Walt Disney Company that might increase prices down the line even further. Great. But we have a couple of super chats right here, and thank you so much for the support. Very much appreciate JPS with $5. Disney can't set up a decent bakery. Can they do anything right? I know, it's crazy.
JPS, it's worse. This is an existing company that has, one or two bakeries in the Orlando area.
Yes.
Coming into Disney territory with their basically what's supposed to be a copy of their allegedly successful formula. So,
for those of you just coming in from the Pro Raid, we talked about at the top of the show here, $23 egg sandwiches, $26 cake slices, and $32 hamburger revealed as part of the Cake Bake Shop. Again, this is a shop that's been in the works for a couple of years now, and now we know it's going to be it's going to have a plethora of higher prices associated with it. So that's no good. Thank you so much, JPS, for the donation. And also, too, Samuel Main with a $3. Thank you so much for the super sticker. The guy doing a thumbs up. I very much appreciate that. I know you've been a very consistent donator for the past couple of streams, and I can't tell you how thankful that I am for that. Also, too, we have somebody coming in right now. Well, it's going to be Barry Plays 28 to talk about all things West Coast with us.
Hey, there he is.
I'm very unhappy about what you just talked about. I cannot think about paying $26 for a cake, a slice of cake, much less, or $23 for an egg sandwich. Are you kidding me? I mean, I'm like over here having heart palpitations, you know, while you guys are talking about that. So that's crazy.
It's wild. And remember, Bob, we got Portos coming in on the West Coast at Downtown Disney. So who knows what additional fees will be associated with that location when it opens in order to offset what they'll be giving Disney in return for that space. So
if they're going to make
just
the
putting it out
prices that high, can we at least get the seating count to be higher? Because you can barely get a seat in like Magic Kingdom and such as it is. So can we at least increase that too,
Well,
please?
but Nolan, wait, Vash and I were talking about that in regard to this bake shop thing too. If you're going to charge, what was it, $70 for a charcuterie board?
Yeah.
That means you're going to order one for the table of 5 or 6 people, taking up 5 or 6 seats, because otherwise you're broke and crazy. So it actually reduces capacity to have these high-priced items because they tend to be shared.
Sure. Oh man. Well, apparently a couple of high item prices are on the menu, but not for us, for Disney, and they'll be eventually making it their way to us as well, I'm sure. This by Disneyland News Today. We got an update on the Jungle Cruise. Now, for anybody keeping track of this project, this construction that you see right here has actually been the state of this portion of the Jungle Cruise for, I want to say, the past couple of months, at least 6 months. Bob, is that right? It feels like forever.
Well, it's been actually, I want to say it's been a little bit longer than that. They've had the tiger inside that kind of little box area. So,
right,
about time he came out.
Apparently,
coming out.
There's
in there.
We've seen reports from Walt Disney World News Today talking about how the temple at Walt Disney World's Jungle Cruise was actually falling apart, and apparently those issues might have been rectified by the time of, we are reporting this. However, well, now Disneyland started to crumble soon thereafter, and again, this is all following a refurbishment project that impacted Jungle Cruise for, I want to say, almost about a year in order to retrofit this and to make it more PC friendly. We'll talk about more about that kind of stuff later. But for right now, Jungle Cruise reopens from 600,000 refurbishment at Disneyland with steel framework up at Tiger Ruins scene. So yes, that is correct. They spent $600,000 on this refurbishment, and the scaffolding that you see is still not down. Again, this attraction was down for 2 weeks. Jungle Cruise reopened over the weekend at Disneyland Park after being closed for a $600,000 refurbishment in August. While much of the ride looks unchanged, framework for the new structure is now hidden behind scrim at the Tiger scene. The Orange County Register reported that Disneyland filed permits valued at $600,000 to replace the Jungle Cruise Tiger scene inside the crumbling ruins section. Jungle Cruise was closed from September 16th through October 3rd. They say that they were a little bit miffed that they waited all this time, had this attraction down for this length of time, expecting that this scaffolding would be finally removed. But unfortunately, even after that level of investment, these scrims are still up. Guys, what is going on here?
Bait and switch.
Yeah, bait and switch. Yeah, you know what? I need to reach out to my source again at Disneyland to see if they have any more information, because I was also told that with the construction they were doing, everything that was going to be taken down and the tiger would be out of the box. They were going to fix that scene, and they still haven't. So I don't know. Kind of weird.
It is very, very strange. Nolan, if this was your first time actually going to Disneyland, I don't know how frequently you actually make it out to the West Coast, but I'd be pretty sure that if this was one of your only times to go down there, you'd be pretty disappointed that this attraction still be in kind of a semi-refurbished state, even after refurbishment. Your thoughts?
If I wanted to see an animal in a box, I would go to SeaWorld. So,
jeez.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to release it, at least do it right. You expect these kind of hiccups, when you have like a brand new ride. But when something is iconic as the Jungle Cruise, when there's literally even a movie based off of this ride, because it's so iconic, for better or worse, mind you, it should be like one of the A+ attractions that should be getting all the love, all the attention, all the money. And the last thing you want to do is pay all that money to go to Disney World, and you're just seeing what is basically a cop-out, just basically a giant sign saying, hey, come back another time, and this thing will actually work. And I'm not going to act like, theme parks never have this sort of thing happen. I've seen many of the times over the years where you're on like a dark ride and they shut the lights off at certain spots because they need to renovate. I understand, it's life. That stuff happens. It's just we're getting to the point now where it's kind of getting a bit ridiculous, you know, with all these up prices. And I know it's the other side of the country. You know, we were just memeing on the whole bakery situation and the prices. This is not the kind of outlook you want to see when you're going for a high dollar theme park. And it's getting to where I feel like everyone's patience is kind of diminishing.
I don't disagree with you, especially with the high prices involved. It's one thing to have things in a constant refurbished state if the price to entry is, you know, anywhere near affordable. But this is a deluxe theme park, even though it is technically a regional theme park, the world's most famous regional theme park. This is still a deluxe location in terms of the price valuation. And I think the former park presidents, the former parks division heads, like not Josh G. Morrow, but some of his predecessors, have stated openly, like Bob Chapek, for example, have stated that this is a quality experience, that they're going to have a quality price point, and that you're going to be getting your money's worth even at that higher price point. This, I don't think, reflects that, and doesn't reflect that mentality that they should have, especially
pretty simple.
when you factor in the price.
If you close it and tell people you're fixing it up and it's going to be new and improved and wonderful, and you open it and it's still under wraps, you haven't opened a damn thing or renovated a damn thing.
True.
It's all about the result. And if you can't provide the people with the result you promised them, you're going to engender lasting disappointment and resentment in your audience. Not what
I will say. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Lou.
Well, good.
So I was going to say, look, they still have the scrim up, so apparently they're doing something. Usually they don't put the scrims up like that and take them down until they're done. So hopefully,
are you sure? Are you sure that those scrims aren't the finished product?
I hope not, because
I hope not too. But look, are you sure? It's like, I know. We'll redesign it as a work in progress so people can see that there's constant renovation going on in the jungle.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, look, when I first saw that the tiger was kind of behind that fence in the box, I was like, what the heck is this? And that scene is such a quick scene. I mean, you literally go by it within, 15, 20 seconds, and you don't really, you hear a Jungle Cruise joke about, the tiger, can't jump more than, or can jump up to 30 feet, but we're only 25 feet away. So it'll go right over us. It's cute. Most people don't have a problem or issue with it. I'm not saying this is a good thing to have. I'm just saying that at first I was kind of like, what the heck is up with that? And I've kind of gotten used to it because I've seen it like that. I hope it doesn't stay. Obviously, we thought that it was going to be changed, and it hasn't been changed. I'm just saying that because they got the scrims up, I'm really crossing my fingers and hoping that this is one of the things they're going to fix. Now, I know in past, Jungle Cruises and stuff, they put some scrims up where they didn't fix things for a long, long time, and hopefully that's not the case here. But I'm going to try to give them the benefit of the doubt on this one and say, well, if they got the scrims up, hopefully they'll continue to work on it and they'll fix what they need to fix.
I hope so too.
That, you don't announce it as fixed.
Yeah.
Well, did they announce it as fixed?
Yeah.
Well, it is kind of something. I think it's a statement when you do have an attraction open when a scrim is still up, even post refurbishment. I guess that's the semi announcement there. I will say in defense of Berry Place 28, I think, how should I say this? I do believe that they are working on it, right? But it's like, okay, if it's not going to be done, then why open this attraction before it's actually done? Again, I know the fall season's coming up and everything like that, and yes, there is higher attendance out there at Disneyland than there is at Walt Disney World, so perhaps they're looking at a capacity concern and constraint there. But this show quality standard shouldn't be the norm. Mm-hmm. It should be, hey, look, listen, if we're gonna close down a ride in order to fix something, let's keep it closed until it's actually fixed. I suppose that's where I'm at with it. But Bob, please.
Well, I agree. I mean, especially if you're spending $600,000 on refurbishing the ride, you definitely think they would take the time to do that and do it right. and not open until they have fixed it. The reasons for doing this, I have no idea. Like I said, I'm going to reach out to my source and see if I can figure out what's going on or if they have any information on it. And if they do, then, I'll report back to you and let you guys know.
Indeed. We would very much appreciate that report if you do indeed get it.
And by the way, when they announce they're going to spend $600,000, how do we know? That's what the permit is for, but that isn't the expenditure. Yep. I can get a permit for $1 million expansion on my back porch here.
Right.
I mean, I have to spend it.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. That's a great point right there. Also, too, we have a theme park casual in the chat. Very happy to see you in the chat right there and watching the show, because I know you have opinions on our next story right here. I've got opinions on it as well, which is why it's the lead story for today, talking about the ruination of Walt's last land, that being New Orleans Square at Disneyland, which opened up, I want to say 1964, 65. I can't quite remember right now. But obviously this was following the 1964-65 World's Fair, under construction for a long, long time. And Walt was so proud of New Orleans Square, he actually invited the mayor of then New Orleans down and said, hey, you know what? Our version is even cleaner than the real version, which was correct there. He was so happy that he was able to facilitate the construction of such a gorgeous land at Disneyland.
He was paraphrasing his statements about when they first showed him, allegedly, they showed him sketches of the Haunted Mansion as a dilapidated, rundown, cobwebbed, spooky house. And he said, no, not in Disneyland. We'll take care of the outside. Let the ghosts take care of the inside. So basically he was saying, here's New Orleans without the drunks and the hookers. And
so I was basically like that, Mayor. I'm like, if it's cleaner, if you don't have a bunch of dudes passed out on the street, I mean, you're good.
Lou.
And New Orleans, but really, Vash, New Orleans in those days, it was famously, scarily violent and nasty in the French Quarter. I remember we had an English teacher at my high school who got mugged there. What's notable about that is he's a one-armed man. I mean, well, let's pick the easy target. And he was almost killed.
That's really tough.
So, Walt couldn't do the real New Orleans. Nobody'd go, is my point. It wasn't like it was totally a choice to do a cleaner, better version.
But that's to your point. Oh, go ahead, Vash. Sorry.
No, please. No, go ahead.
Well, to your point, Lou, it's a great story there because it shows how Walt just had so much pride in what he made that he was literally willing to invite the mayor over to come see it. It seems like nowadays, whenever they're inviting like famous public figures, they're intentionally picking those that are going to say, good things about them and the company, might align with their beliefs and such. It's when you invite someone like the mayor, he's more than likely going to be your biggest critic. They could learn a lot from Walt back then on how to, if even a critic is singing your praises, it shows the amount of quality that's going to be into the parks. And when you're recreating,
bring the mayor of Tatooine.
They did not bring the mayor of Tatooine.
I think they told the mayor of Tatooine that they didn't want his scripts for the sequel trilogy. I'm pretty sure about that.
Ooh. Yeah, I think you're right about that. But what inspired this story, interestingly enough, is that we have seen a number of projects be performed within New Orleans Square over the last 10 years. And it's all culminated to this point in which we have not only Jonas Bayou Adventure going in right next door, but also we have this complete reimagining, let's say, of the exterior of the Haunted Mansion itself. This iconic attraction from 1969, one of the last attractions that Walt ever personally worked on. And when you have a facade like this for the exterior shop, and it's this large and it's this imposing, and it comes out into the walkway to this extent, a walkway that is very heavily traversed, by the way, and you see it next to the stately mansion itself and how it competes with it in terms of scale, it just says something where the Imagineers of today might be a little out of touch with maybe the Imagineers of yesteryear and what New Orleans Square really means to people. New Orleans Square is supposed to be, quaint little shops, supposed to have, forced perspective in order to make things look larger, but not necessarily have large structures within it. And now we have this very large shop structure at the exit of Haunted Mansion, and it just, I don't know, it takes something away, especially when you have some of those amazing plants or Italian cypresses there that date back actually to the entrance of Tomorrowland back in '55, interestingly enough. Anyway, all of that to be said, this is just one of many things actually occurring in New Orleans Square, especially when you look at the gambit over the last 10 years. And I think 21 Royal Street, or Andy Castro, I think had a pretty good breakdown of what's been happening over that time. The new Haunted Mansion gift shop is like half the size of the mansion facade. The contradiction in scale between the two structures that are supposed to exist in harmony together is insane. And it's wild how they just totally wrecked New Orleans Square over the last 2 decades. The Disney Gallery, now gone. Pirates Auction Scene, now gone. Club 33 expansion and lazy facades that have taken over the Court of Angels. That's also affected New Orleans Square greatly. Gianna's Palace, Magnolia Park / Haunted Mansion Q expansion, Haunted Mansion gift shop, etc. This is Walt's final land. Disneyland's crown jewel of lands. Intimate, mysterious, and beautifully designed. And it's just a mess now. And to illustrate some of the things that he's talking about right here, well, we can look at some of the stuff like this, where you have this Club 33 entrance foyer that used to exist, in front of the club before you actually went up into the dining room. Now that has been turned into basically a storage room or closet for Le Baton Rouge merchandise. That area has been dispatched and entirely removed, and in its place now you have, let's see here, you have the Court of Angels now that acts as the foyer for the entrance to Club 33, which used to be available to everybody, and now you have to have a Club 33 membership in order to see this portion of New Orleans Square, which is a real shame. You had these beautiful terraces that were constructed for additional views for Fantasmic when that show was added back in 1982, and there was so much love imbued in this project that you see that brickwork right there, Nolan, along the terraces right there. What they did in order to make those bricks blend seamlessly into a land that is supposed to be aged is they took all of the bricks that they installed there and put them in a concrete mixer, and then had that mixer turn there a couple of times, and that way it shifted and rounded off all of those edges for those bricks before actually installing them. So that way they would have this kind of aged or grounded off appearance as if they had been there for many, many years. So they would blend beautifully with a land that had been there for years, but is obviously supposed to look older than it is. And now you have all those terraces removed, and in their place are bricks that, they look brand new. And all that quality that was imbued by those original Imagineers, wasn't transferred in that process right there. The auction scene, the famous auction scene that used to be at inside Pirates of the Caribbean, going back to when the attraction opened in March of, I want to say, early 1967, now gone, replaced with a scene that's more PC friendly. And it's all of these things that have been done in the last 10 years that have kind of taken away from this land that people love so much. Your guys' thoughts?
It reminds me of Hollywood. They just get so much more lazy. The little attention to detail, like the bricks you were saying, like a creative and a mastermind behind a project and a strong leader will take time to be like, okay, let's add a little bit of rough detail there. Let's swap out some cars and stuff. We need this to look period accurate. So when all the history nerds, and I say that lovingly, come in, they're going to spot the detail. People and just the normal average everyday Joe will go in and he doesn't realize the little things there, but he just knows that it just feels like such bigger quality than what you can see at just any other theme park. Now it seems more like an assembly line to, I hope I make my manager or corporate boss happy, as opposed to, We have a visionary who has a goal, and let's make something that is going to be both profitable and inspirational. Well, I don't know if this is going to land as either of those two things.
And by the way, it isn't even about the physical change. It's about the attitude and the PR and the imagery put forward. Part of that stuff over there by Haunted Mansion, I understand, is an expansion of the outdoor queue, right? It's having to do with the up and the down and a handicap way to get down to the lower side. And
right. Because if you
how did they announce it?
Queue.
They announced it as, we're going to change the queue. When they originally realized that they had queue problems on Pirates, it was because there was such a line outside the building. It was literally blocking off access from people walking by on those steps that you showed, getting back into the streets. How did they announce it when they redid it? When they built the bridge and the hole under it? The PR department put out a press release that said, well, those rambunctious pirates, one of their cannonballs came out the front of the building and blew a hole in the street. And we thought, well, as long as we got this hole, and that's why we now have this crossover. Here, that I can get next there. That hole wasn't there before.
No,
when
it was
they
not.
first opened the ride. But they didn't just build it to say, we're alleviating traffic problems. They gave us a whole story. They made it part of the magic. They don't give a damn anymore. They just don't.
This is how it used to look, by the way.
That's a shame.
I know it is. And Tony Baxter, I don't know if you can see them in these shots here, but there are these beautiful staircases that flank the upper deck there that you see in this photograph, what it used to look like. And he was talking about how it took so much to try to justify those sweeping staircases that would take you up into what was the old Disney gallery, because it was a very expensive project. But he sold it as, hey, it's worth it. It's worth it to spend this much. I think Frank Wells actually helped in assisting in getting that project done. And at considerable expense of the company, but you had somebody who really believed in maintaining the integrity of Disneyland and adding on rather than just taking away and stripping away. But Bob, it is a little bit disheartening to see the culmination of all of these reimaginings that have taken place in New Orleans Square. Or maybe it's not. Maybe I'm out of touch here. What are your thoughts?
Well, look, I mean, you're right. This is the last land that Walt touched, and it opened July 24th, 1966. And they spent $18 million just to build this whole area, which is kind of funny because they call it New Orleans Square, and it's kind of a misnomer because it's not even a true square. But regardless, Walt had always said, hey, as long as there's imagination, the park will never, be the way it's going to be. It's, there's going to be changes. And I get that. Going to the whole thing, I know you're talking about the Pirates of the Caribbean, the auction. I don't agree with that. They've changed a lot of things inside that ride, mainly because of the Story Matters teams and, what they're trying to do with diversity. And it really, that drives me nuts. But besides that, they've obviously had to make changes over the years, for things like Fantasmic and whatnot. I'm totally fine with Tiana's Palace. I think they did a pretty good job of, redoing that whole area. I think the concern I have is that, there is no attention to detail in those storylines anymore, like you guys were talking about. There was always a reason for what they did and why they did it, and they would weave that story in there. They're building this whole new, store for the Haunted Mansion. Now, from what I heard is that they were trying to build it more like the Museum of the Weird. And you see in this picture that you're seeing right now, the store looks actually fairly small. The problem I think that, we're all having with it is, I don't mind it having a big store, but when you're going to have a big store like that and it's next to the Haunted Mansion, it's throwing off the whole, perspective.
Let's put it this way. If you look at cities that still exist in the South, like Charleston, like Savannah, like Beaufort, that have mentions on squares in town, they don't have a five and dime in front of them. They're set off in their own little park. They're set off in their own little landscaping. And yeah, there's streets with shops, but it doesn't mingle. This is called remove the artistic zoning laws so to speak, as far as the intermingling of those two things. And also, if you compare that picture right there with the previous artist's sketch, isn't this new shop awfully far out into the street compared to the imagined version? And isn't that street busier than ever because of the traffic going back that way to get to Galaxy's Edge? It was always kind of a pinch point. But now...
And it was so much of a pinch point, Lou, that in years past, you see this brick wall structure here that separates the Haunted Mansion facade from the rest of the street. That used to have benches lining it. They actually had to remove those because people would kind of bunch up against those. So it was all about increasing throughput to this area. Now you have this big shop, that just winds out of here, and who knows what damage that might do to the traffic. But you were saying, Bob, I think you wanted to complete your point.
Yeah, well, so to me, I mean, from what I heard is that, they were trying to make this kind of like the Museum of the Weird. From my sources, they're talking about putting Museum of the Weird stuff inside the shop and around the top of the, the shop and whatnot, which is something they typically do with all the different theme shops they have. And I'm cool with that. But the thing is, if this is supposed to be like a guest quarters, because that's the other rumor, it's a guest quarters. Well, guest quarters wouldn't be that big, obviously, right? For a mansion. And like Lou said, it's kind of weird they have this on the side, so
it
close
wouldn't
to the
be
mansion.
Guests. It would be either a carriage house for the horses, or it would be slave quarters.
Yes.
Right. Not employees.
Well, yeah. Sorry. I was trying to get at.
No, but you're right. But I'm just saying, not like that. Not like that.
Right.
It wouldn't be that big, I think. Yeah.
But to me, this looks more like the Museum of the Weird type stuff. And if that's what they're going for, the whole original idea of Museum of the Weird is that it was going to be a cross over where Fowler's Harbor is. Unfortunately, the harbor's there, so they can't put anything there. If they were able to put it there, I think that it would be fine, and that the forced perspective would not be so, bad. But yeah, the forced perspective on this right now is not looking so great. I want it to be a nice looking shop. I'm okay with it being, kind of big. But then when you put it right next to the Haunted Mansion like this, like we were talking about yesterday, Vash, then yeah, it doesn't bode well for the whole perspective. Maybe. But that's the thing. It's like, are the Imagineers not thinking about, hey, maybe we should have, dug it into the ground a little bit more and had a ramp that goes down, and that way, the forced perspective looks, better. But I think that's the problem we're having with a lot of the Imagineer, issues right now, is that nothing's really considered or taken into account about what they should or how they should do it. They just go ahead and do it.
And they don't do projects in their surroundings. They say, design me a shop. And then they plop it down.
Doesn't feel incorporated.
Anyway.
Right.
No, you're right.
Well, and just like the Ray's Berets. Hey, we're going to have a hat store. We're going to name it Ray's Berets because it rhymes with Ray. Well, people don't really wear a lot of berets, in New Orleans, from what I understand. So it's like, what the heck? Why are you doing a Ray's Berets? Why couldn't you, think of a better name or something? To me, it's just, they're just coming out with what they think is fun and cutesy.
Let me ask everybody out there a question. Do you think in 2024 they would ever, if they were building New Orleans Square today for the first time, they would ever have anything like that perfume store where they would mix and match a fragrance to match your taste?
That's a good point.
Individually, one-on-one. That was the 1965 version of Build Your Own Lightsaber.
Yeah.
But wouldn't happen.
Specialty shop like that?
Yeah,
wouldn't think so.
Yeah, I think to me it's the attention to detail. If they took more time to think of these things and work through them instead of just doing them because they need to do it and they want to do it fast, I just felt like the way that Imagineers and WED used to do things is that they used to take that they used to think about it. Like you were just talking about how what's his name? Sorry, the Imagineer that was talking about the staircase. Baxter. Thank you. So Baxter, he said, look, we really had to think about this, how we're going to do it and how it's going to be applied. And we want to take care of this because this is Walt's last land. I mean, that's the problem, is that people I don't think they're thinking like, Tony Baxter or the other Imagineers anymore. And so you just get this, hey, let's just do this. And we're going to do it right now. We're going to throw some money at it and And there he goes. Hope you guys enjoy it.
And while we're doing that, we're going to open it when it isn't finished with scaffolding on it.
It's so true. When I see stuff like,
I mean, it's not just this one land or that one land. It's a company and park-wide attitude problem.
yeah. When I see Magnolia Gardens be completely removed, and then they take the fountain and they make it a planter alongside the queue for Haunted Mansion. When I see like the lights that are added to Jonas Palace and how they really, they are so bright that they kind of take away from everything else and draw maybe too much attention on the facade in itself. I just think, wow, you're really not thinking about how, like you said, Lou, how all this stuff could be incorporated a little bit more holistically. You're just thinking about the one single project, and this is why, back in the day, the saying used to be, wow, it's like this was always here, like this has always been here, and now it's, you get projects that are added to these parks and you go, feels out of place, which is never a good place to be. But speaking of projects that are being added to the Disneyland Resort, and the future of the resort itself in relation to those projects, well, we have to talk about this story right here, coming out of actually Mice Chat of all places. This one is very interesting, folks, because we have been talking about on this show how the Coco and Avatar attractions will eventually be added to the Disneyland Resort, where they might end up going. And now I've said on that park list and other places, my pick for where Avatar and Coco might go would be to have Coco take up residence in the Hollywoodland, retheme that area, because you have Buena Vista Street right next door. You could incorporate maybe more Hispanic culture to the area, and make use of a lot of the Hollywood land facades that haven't been used for a while and so forth. And then you can save the larger plot, the symbol lot, right next door to the Disney Resort for Avatar. Well, apparently what we've been hearing is Avatar might actually take up residence in Hollywoodland, and then Coco might take up residence behind what is Incredicoaster right now, which I have my reservations about, and apparently that might be a conversation actually being had right now. So let's see here. Let me see if I can get... Change is a constant. Recent changes at Imagineering appear to have resulted in shifts to the announced projects coming to the Disneyland Resort. Again, this is Mice Chat's Monday update that was released yesterday. While the new Avengers e-ticket seems to still be on track for construction to start next year, we're starting to hear from people inside the company that the Avatar and Coco projects might be in flux. We expect both to still happen, but likely in locations other than originally planned. We've told you that teams measured crowd levels in Pixar Pier and determined that a major new attraction in the tight confines of the Pixar Pier's far side might cause a bottleneck and difficulty queuing guests. As a result, it was suggested that Coco be moved to Hollywoodland, which would not only allow Hollywood Boulevard and the animation building to remain, but also the rerouting of the red cars, if budgets allow. So the red cars might actually be saved long term. The upside is that Monsters, Inc. would be saved, as the Coco attraction would take the spot next door where Hollywood and Dine was once located. This project shift would also allow DCA to retain all of its current attractions while still adding new ones, meaning an increase in attraction capacity instead of the expected loss if Avatar consumed all of Hollywood land. But it also means that a new large plot of land needs to be found for the Avatar project, and that might need to wait for the big third park expansion or the Disneyland Forward expansion on the west side, expecting to be in the area around Disneyland and Pixar Place hotels. Overall, we hope that this shift sticks, as it would mean that the preservation of Monsters, Inc., Hollywood Boulevard, hopefully red cars, but also fills in the blank spots of Hollywood land. Not completely. Hopefully this project relocation, if it does happen, will also address the Stage 17 building and the lackluster Mickey's PhilharMagic attraction. Guys, what do you guys think about this change in the plans?
I'm kind of shocked. I didn't even know it was legal to, not replace an attraction, like actually retain your original fun adventures people made memories with and put in new things. Like, this is astronomical. This is amazing.
Oh, no.
This is a revelation, Nolan. He doesn't even know what to do with himself. I do agree with that. Bob, your thoughts?
Yeah, so my sources still tell me at the moment that Coco is supposed to be going behind the roller coaster. So
No,
not
don't
sure.
say that. Okay.
Oh, I
Tell
know,
your
I know.
source to change it.
Well, yeah, right. I don't think that source is in that area.
If we
so-
source it, they will come.
Oh,
Ooh.
yeah, right.
Uh,
Ooh, wow. So yeah, after Vash and I talked about this yesterday, I went back to my source to see if they had heard anything different, and that person was telling me no, it's still being planned for behind the roller coaster, but she heard anything different, she'd let me know. She did hear about the mice chat, information, but not sure where they had gotten that from. Obviously, I'm sure they have their sources, but it's interesting because originally, I thought when they announced this, yes, that maybe Coco would go over to Hollywoodland. I always thought that when it came to Avatar, they need to put it in the Simba parking lot because it wouldn't be a good area for Hollywoodland. Now, if this is true and it does end up happening where they bring it back over to Hollywoodland, then great. Maybe they will save the trolley and maybe things will be a little bit different and things won't change so much. But I think time will tell. Here's the one thing that gets me though, right? And this seems to be a regular thing. And we were wondering, what's going to change after D23? What exactly are they going to say? Oh, we're going to do things a little bit differently. And you're starting to hear this about Coco, right? So it's like, you heard, hey, we're going to do this 4 years ago for Tiana's Bayou Adventure. It's going to look like this. And then 2 years later, the look changed and the story kind of changed. And then 2 years later, the look changed again, and we're not doing as much now. It's like it's almost one of those things where you expect them to give these great announcements, and then you're waiting for the disappointment later on. And this is one of those things where it's like, are we going to be disappointed again? Are you starting to tell me that things aren't going to be the same with Coco? Are you telling me that you're not going to do the full scale thing that you're supposed to? Are you spending less money on this? Is it not going to be what we thought it was going to be? What the heck? So I don't know. Nolan, did you have something?
Kind of makes you wonder when you see a first announcement of anything at D23, if it's even slightly serious or if it was created just to be announced at D23.
Right.
There's so much blue sky with it. And what I was going to say there was, they're at some other theme parks, they'll announce that a popular ride is going to close, and they'll be like, okay, for the rest of the year, this is the date that the ride is going to shut down. There'll be like a big celebration on the last day, more so from the fans.
They'll sell the light bulbs.
Yeah, or like what's it called at Kings Island? They'll just chop up the ride and sell it for like $200 a pop just to get a piece of the ride.
Right.
Yeah, that actually happened. But Disney is so bad. You got me thinking where they will announce a project like 4 years before it happened and shoot like this amazing.
I want a blooming onion right now.
Amazing, epic concept art. And, usually with theme parks, they'll shut down the ride and they'll start constructing something in its place. And people will be speculating like, ooh, is that going to be like a Star Wars ride? Is that going to be like a Guardians ride? And they'll naturally kind of let it build up. So that way, when it's announced, you're only waiting like a year or two, for it to happen. When you announce something like, it's like before Christmas, back in like spring, they tell you, hey, did you know you're getting that football for Christmas? By the time you get to Christmas, it's losing some of its luxury. By then, you might have moved on to basketball. Like, I don't know. It can build hype definitely at D23, and I think it's something that needs importance. But I think there's a little too much of a routine now to where almost every announcement needs to be like 4 or 5 years early, and there's not enough time to really, hey, let's get a pleasant surprise that's coming out in like a few months,
And do you know why? Because there's a bunch of people on the payroll listed under public relations, and they got to have something to do, or else why are we paying them, even if it's too soon?
It's such a fair point as well.
I mean,
to give
it's a corporate structure thing. It's not a creativity thing.
Yeah, and we've seen the corporate structure of Disney and especially the experiences division get in the way in a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
Now you have park presidents deciding on projects, not necessarily Imagineers, and they decide on a number of metrics and so forth. It's just it's really
all
taking
I can
its
tell you
toll
is
on
back that
creativity.
map up just a little before you do this, Vash.
Oh, please.
Can I tell you of many people you've never heard of and I've never heard of and don't know the name of, who I would like to have been? The guy that owns that land that the Candy Cane Inn is on.
Oh yeah,
right there in the corner.
I know.
Back in
I know.
1930 something, bought that corner.
Mhm.
Well, apparently, Lou, that specific property might be in the hands of Disney already, but that's a hush hush
Whenever-
kind of story right
Whenever
there.
they got it, they paid a lot more than he did. Let's put it that way.
Oh, absolutely, they did. That's for sure. You can see right here where this proposed Coco ride would have actually gone, right behind the Incredicoaster right here on the far side of Disney California Adventure. That's the aerial view that we actually see here right now. And then you can actually see where the Hollywoodland section of the park is and where they suspect this Coco attraction might actually go. I'm not so sure it's going to take up this residence right here because you do have the Hyperion next to it, and there is an expansion pad to the north of this with the approval of Disneyland Forward and the replacement of the bus drop-off area. We know that they want the bus drop-off and the Uber drop-off and everything on the other side of harbor, not on the resort side. So I think all this stuff is still in flux for sure. And then where Avatar might go might be here. So that's kind of where we stand, at least right now, according to these rumors. Again, Bob, obviously you have different sources, and this project is very much still in flux. But somebody was actually asking in the chat, do they put stuff out just to glean feedback from it? They absolutely do. So this whole thing of like shovel ready, none blue sky.
We're moving
Don't
dirt.
believe for a
Honest,
second
we
that.
are.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, but how easy was it for them to say, or for Josh to say, "Hey, look, this is breaking ground in 2026." Well, he didn't say where. He just, other than DCA, he just said we're breaking ground. This is definitely happening. Great. Okay, that's awesome. But there's a lot of things that they left out, so it makes you wonder: do they do that? Like you said, to feel it out, or maybe they're like, hey, we're going to do this, but if something else comes up, we need to decide where we're going to put it elsewhere. We're not going to say where it's going to be. Who
If
knows?
they don't tell you, there's a reason.
It's so true.
Whether that reason is we don't know either, or we've got something else to hide, or we're clever enough to build it up and then reveal it to you and it'll be a bigger hit. It could be any of those things, but there's no margin in keeping a secret if you're doing nothing but telling lies. So
and if these trends show where it's like we're breaking ground, like Barry said, in like 2026, translation, that often means we're breaking ground in late 2026, because if it's early, they'll put coming spring 2026. Usually, if trends in like the gaming industry have taught me anything, whenever they say a year, it means October onward.
Right.
That's so true.
End of the year.
It's a great point. We'll have to see about all this. And yeah, I do agree with you, Nolan. I agree with you, Bob. 2026. Well, let's wake me up when we see the bulldozers actually come in and we actually get shovels actually hitting dirt and not just
wake me up before phrases. You, Coco.
Oh, jeez. Don't go there.
Fantastic.
I was thinking the Evanescence route, but I'll take that too.
Well, speaking of melody times at Disney parks, I'm sorry, this is a poor transition right here. We have a story coming out of the New York Post that y'all are going to want to see. This one right here. Couple took 31 trips to Disney World after stealing $500,000 from the government. Says the feds, it looks like. Anna Young publishing this one right here. Life isn't so magical anymore.
This instead of the live action remakes, please.
I know, right? Yeah, this is your Disney content here, folks. Not what's on Disney Plus. It's these stories. Just
have like a time lapse of them like every day in the park. Like one day they have like one of those crazy mustaches. Next day they're dressed up as bears or something like that.
Yes, indeed. An army contractor and his girlfriend defrauded the government of nearly $500,000 to take dozens of lavish vacations to Walt Disney World while claiming they were traveling for work. Thomas Bouchard, 61, used his government connections to get his girlfriend, Cantel Boyd, 53, hired for a, quote, no-show job as his assistant so they could take numerous vacations, including 31 trips to Disney World in Florida, Oh, so it was even more than this. They claimed were work-related, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts, interestingly enough. And to cover this more in depth, I know Marvin has a bunch of thoughts, which is why he's joining us right now. Marvin, the movie monster, what is going on, good sir?
Hello, gentlemen. I'm happy to be here. Sorry I'm a little bit late. Things are a little
You're
crazy here currently. We're battening down the hatches because the toughest hurricane with the wimpiest name is currently on its way here. So, you know, we're getting ready.
Well, it could have been worse,
Never thought
Marvin. Could have been
never thought
could have been Wilton.
Yes, Jonas made that joke on the
I
post.
figured,
Okay.
I
It would
figured
just
that
blow hot air and do nothing.
I figured that Ron Bradley would dress up in a top hat, so it could be Milton Bradley.
We were just going over a story, Marvin, about apparently a couple defrauding the government for $500,000 in order to take Walt Disney World Vacations 31.
Oh.
In fact, the elaborate scheme cost the Department of Defense more than $490,000 exactly. Bouchard, who was in charge of the U.S. Army Natick Contracting Division in Massachusetts, used his long-standing relationship with the government contractor Evolution Enterprise Inc. to have Boyd hired as an assistant to support them. This comes in the wake, by the way, too, of another fraud scheme, which had New York City educators actually take away trips that were intended for homeless students, which was particularly egregious. But Marvin, you were saying.
No, I would assume that the federal government and the current administration was fine with it because the money all went to its current propaganda arm, right?
Yes, it's just an in-kind contribution, don't you know? Yeah,
Lou didn't already make that. Lou didn't already make that joke, did he?
No, never.
No, he didn't.
I beat you to it.
He did not.
And I'll be expecting the $20 payment you promised to let you do it first any day now.
Wow. Wow.
You're halfway there to being able to
here.
buy something from the bakery.
Oh yeah,
Man, Lou, if you're able to be bought for $20,
rented. I prefer to say rented.
Yeah. And you know, Lou, that doesn't even get you a cake, as we've discovered earlier on this
Oh,
show.
but
So
man, I
maybe you
get
gotta-
that PBJ.
well, you can't get a sandwich for it.
Man, you saw that story, right, Marvin? Where $23
Yeah.
egg sandwiches, $26. Oh, it's so ridiculous. But hey, that's why you're going to need to steal $500 million. I'm sorry, $500,000, $500,000 in order to go to Walt Disney World because, well, things are so
they
darn
took
expensive there.
They took $500,000. I assume that means they had to stay at a moderate resort.
But they
That's
did get the
hilarious.
dining plan.
That's funny.
Yeah, didn't get the
Yeah,
dining
but not the deluxe dining plan, just the regular dining plan. Thank
No,
you.
the snacks plan. You get to get a couple
Yeah.
of snacks every single day.
And then they use their snack credits to get a bag of chips.
Oh. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Oh, that's funny.
This is a story right here. I mean, people are getting just more desperate to visit these places. We covered a story actually last week talking about a mom sneaking in her two children there in order to get them into a Disney California Adventure for nothing, as trying to pose them off as under three, I believe, which is
These people.
yeah. They went 4 times that month.
They couldn't think of anything else to do with the money than 31 trips.
Oh,
They really like Walt Disney World, Lou.
I guess.
I asked my friend introduced me to her daughter one time, and I said to her, "How old are you, hon?" And she said, "I'm 4, but when Daddy brings me to Disney World, I'm 2."
Wow.
that's clever. That's clever. Yeah, the story about the kids was really, really sad because that was intended for
Let me just
homeless
jump in
students.
for 2 seconds, guys.
Please.
Something has come up and I got to run. So please continue the mirth, and thank you to you guys in the audience for putting up with my eccentricities.
No problem at all, Lou. We very much
Okay,
appreciate
I'll see you
your
later.
amazing
Bye-bye.
insight. Thank you.
Take care, Lou.
Thank you. I'll be giving him a call afterwards, make sure he's all right. But for now, these stories here, we're just seeing them propagate more and more. in terms of media coverage, but also them occurring in general. I'm not surprised that people would take from government funds and so forth in order to pay for such lavish trips. But I suppose the frequency at which we hear these stories now is a little bit surprising to me, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional thoughts?
I mean, I could think of a million other things that I would use $500,000 for than to take 31 Disney trips. But you do you, buddy.
Yeah.
Still not as
Yeah,
much money as some of the budgets for these Disney Plus shows.
Well, I mean, like what, an episode?
Yeah, you could have made a season and a half of The Acolyte.
Season and a half, Marvin. Those are highly discounted rates if you're making a season and a half at $500,000.
Well, I'm cutting some corners. So no more name brand.
Okay, yeah, like Leslie Headland.
Yeah.
Oh man,
too funny.
Tough stuff. But yeah, that is what is going on over there, and it's going to be interesting to watch. I'm sure even more headlines come out in the years ahead as Walt Disney World increasingly increases their prices going forward. Oh boy, not good at all. But you know what is good, and then we'll get to some bad as well. We've got this story. Here's what we know about Universal FanFest nights at Universal Studios Hollywood. Now, when we originally broke this story on That Park Place, we had an idea of the franchises that might actually be included with these FanFest nights that were going to be taking place at Universal Studios Hollywood on the West Coast. But we didn't really have a lot of details to go along with it. Now we do actually know a little bit more. Not just the franchises that are featured, but the particulars about said franchises that are featured. Like, in fact, Marvin, you might like this right here. FanFest nights coming April 25th through May 18th. And apparently the Star Trek portion of this, which they'll feature anime, Dungeons and Dragons, Back to the Future, and so forth, will actually feature the next generation version of the USS Enterprise that was featured in Picard Season 3. What do you think?
Oh, make it so.
It's perfect right there. This is pretty cool, right? This is awesome. Apparently you will actually be on the set, the bridge of the USS Enterprise D from Star Trek Next Generation. This is really, really cool. We actually had a look at least the chair at LA Comic Con at the South Hall booth 1054. Pretty cool. This is shaping up to be pretty awesome. It's like Halloween Horror Nights, but for kind of classic IPs and stuff like that. Nolan, come on, you got to be excited.
Do you know how long I've waited for them to bring something like this back? They had something like this in Vegas years ago. I never got to do it. You've made my day, dude. Like, I am so astronomically happy right now. This is the kind of hype thing that gets people happy. This is what we wanted from Galaxy's Edge, and not Star Trek, obviously, but we wanted to be able to recreate those iconic scenes. And it's like one for one. And I guess that's what happened to the chair after Star Trek Generations when that ship kind of died. But no, I am on cloud 9 right now, and I cannot express how happy I am just to see. I never thought a chair could make me so happy in my life, but win, absolute win.
Well, we have formed our bridge party for Toony Talk TV, Nolan, and you are the helmsman. That does make you Wesley Crusher, though.
You know what? I'm okay with being Will Wheaton. I'll take it. I'll take it at this point.
Shut up, Nolan.
No, I think this is really, really cool, and the fun doesn't stop here. In fact, we heard that anime might be involved in these FanFest nights at Universal Studios Hollywood, and now we actually have the franchises that will specifically be featured. One Punch will be featured along with Jujutsu Kaisen. That's pretty cool. Apparently, they do have a One Piece, I believe, stunt show occurring in the Waterworld Theater out there in Japan at Universal Osaka. We're assuming that might actually take place here as well at the Waterworld Theater Universal Studios Hollywood in LA, so that's pretty cool. Also, too, Back to the Future will be featured. We don't know exactly what they might have in store, but I am hearing from sources that what they have in store for Back to the Future is going to be really, really cool. So that's very exciting. Also, too, Dungeons and Dragons. We didn't get much in the way of details on that, but I mean, hey, this is shaping up to be really, really, really cool. Last but not least, I guess you're going to be having a Niflin encounter for the Wizarding World portion of FanFest nights. The same thing we believe takes place right now at Universal Osaka. So this is
that's
all
really cool because
really cool.
I you know what, Vash, I thought it was at Disney where they just steal all your money. So that's going to be an interesting copy from Universal.
Marvin, you come up with the stuff. You're so good at this. No, look, you know, I think Universal prides itself on being an equal opportunity offender when it comes to that stuff. I don't know, but I think this is really cool. A Halloween Horror Nights type event, but more maybe family friendly and more franchise driven, especially with franchises that aren't usually under Universal's control. I think is really, really awesome. Bob, you looking forward to it?
I think it might be kind of fun. I mean, the more and more they talk about it, the more and more exciting it sounds. So, yeah, it sounds like something that's kind of right up my alley. So, yeah, I would like to go.
Nolan, you're going to be flying out across country for this?
Oh yeah, totally. Like, is this going to line up? How close is it going to be to the launch of Epic Universe?
It should take place before. So the official nights are April 25th through May 18th. And we're wondering if they're going to incorporate parts of the backlot, if they're going to incorporate some of the stages, the sound stages that they have on the lower lot and so forth that they do with Halloween Horror Nights right now. We're still seeing about that, but I think Epic might open after this, but I'm actually not sure. Marvin?
I mean, look, I'm not going to go all the way to Hollywood for it. If they ever bring it to Orlando, I will gleefully go to every single night of it. But I mean, yeah, and a lot of times they'll pilot something like this in Hollywood before bringing it to other parks. So if they bring this over onto the East Coast, then sure, I'll go to it. I think it'd be great. I love Halloween Horror Nights. I was just there again on Friday, so you know, I think it would. I think it's a great idea. I hope it succeeds, and if it comes, you know, to a closer place to me, then I will be happy to go to it. But I'm not flying all the way out there just for that.
You know, I'll give Universal credit. They have been sending out a series of, surveys in order to find out what people will react to in terms of franchises, properties, and so forth. I know there was a survey the other day where they were talking about Christopher Nolan films and would you be interested in like an Oppenheimer type experience? I don't even know what that would actually entail. But it does seem that they're a little bit more...
I'd be afraid of that. Yeah, I'd be a little afraid of what that would be like.
Yeah. Is it just a one big explosion? I don't know. But no,
your face melts.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, you get radiation poisoning. Oh, there you go. You start out with Oppenheimer, then you go with Fallout. That's how they're doing it right there.
The radiation poisoning is the souvenir you get after the experience.
There you go. Wow.
The real gift was the radiation poisoning we made along the way.
yes. And the ghouls and so forth. But they seem to be a little bit more fan-oriented, and I'll give them credit for that. I think you make a good point, Marvin. They do host this stuff in Hollywood first, and then they, you know, if there's any viability, they'll bring it out to other parks. Is there any franchise, Marvin, I will say, that would get you to fly out, if any?
I mean, if they added like some more Nintendo stuff before Orlando got it, then that would be something that might pull me out there. I just hate to fly. I really hate to fly. So like to take a 6-hour flight would definitely be it's got to be something really big to pull me out there. Like my Mrs. Movie Monster tries to make the point every single year that we should go to Disneyland because I've never been. And every time I think about the flight, I just say to myself, or we could do another Disney cruise. And then we end up doing another Disney cruise.
Well, I would recommend coming out of Disneyland at least once, but I understand it is quite the journey, the trek to go out to Disneyland in California. It's its own vibe. I think it is really cool, especially when you have all the entertainment running like gangbusters. Definitely worth a visit. But I can see the point of going on another cruise. It's hard to say.
Marvin, you just take a 3-day Amtrak train across the country. That's all you do.
Oh, that sounds great! Like 3 times the price and a million times as long. That sounds amazing.
Well, you don't like to fly, so I'm just looking for another option there.
I don't know. It's also a little bit too. It's a little too close to Spencer Bakuli. Like I try to keep a safe distance. So just waiting for his all caps comment in the comments right now.
Kabuto, I'm sorry. Gotta call you out. Oh, that's so funny.
That's so funny.
Well, that's definitely a thing as well. I'm trying to find our next story, so I do apologize. Oh, is there any Disney transportation from LAX? Not official Disneyland transportation, Pamela Hampson. There is a bus / train you can actually take, and it's actually pretty cheap. But it will take you about 2 hours in order to make the journey, which I suppose is better than being on the I-10 for an hour and a half. But Bob, any other transportation options from LAX?
No, I mean there's a lot of people that will take like an Uber or Lyft. I don't. That can be kind of expensive too. But yeah, Vash just uses the Berry Place Express. That's all. Whenever you can. If you know a friend that lives out here, I'd say, hey, have them pick you up. But unfortunately, there's not a really easy way to do it, and we don't have any. You could buy. So my recommendation, if you're going to do, because there's no really Disney transportation, if you're going to stay close, well, let's put it this way. I don't necessarily recommend staying close to Disneyland. You can if you want to. If you stay anywhere around within that 4 to 5 mile radius. I mean, there's places in Anaheim and Cypress and Boynton Park that you could stay at, close to Knott's Berry Farm as well. And so I would say stay kind of out of that Disney area. You'll get cheaper hotels. It'll be a lot easier. You could take an Uber that not going to cost you a whole lot of money just to get over to the park. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah,
that was an A-class comment with the freeway with the Judge Doom.
Ken Reinhardt, he's excellent. Yeah, Judge Doom screwed that up years ago. Yeah, they used to have the Pacific Line. Just take you all the way to the beach from various places around LA. Very, very cool.
You bought the red car?
Yeah.
You know what's funny? The red car, believe it or not, where I live, just on the other side of the homes here. So I have the red car track that still exists, but no red
cars on it.
Red trolley.
Yeah, because then it used to go up Beach Boulevard and stuff like that.
Well, yeah. Great.
Well,
I will say. Here's my other recommendation. If you want, you could also just you could take something over to the Union Station, hop on Amtrak, take it all the way down to Anaheim. You can do that as well, and then it's not very expensive to take a Uber or Lyft from the train station in Anaheim over by the Honda Center over to Disneyland or the hotels over there. So that's another option because it's pretty. I think it's I want to say it's about $17 and $20 one way to go on Amtrak, which is not too bad. You could do that as well.
Yeah, the Amtrak I've heard is pretty good transportation option as well. Very, very cool. But what's not so cool? This story coming out of Orlando Park Stop right here. This will be our final story of the day. But I don't like this one because reasons. We'll get into why maybe. Universal patents technology to detect line jumping and other disruptive guest behaviors. This by Alicia Stella. I don't know. This one's tough right here. Universal has filed a patent application for technology that would place sensors around a theme park. These sensors could use machine learning to detect unruly guests and track rule breakers with the aim of improving the guest experience for others. The possible technology would utilize many sensors. This includes cameras, sound, smoke detectors, liquid detection, structural sensors, temperature sensors, motion sensors, all kinds of stuff, and more to monitor park areas and rides for disruptive or dangerous behavior. The patent gives many examples, including line jumping, disruptive actions by inebriated guests, smoking in non-smoking areas, and getting out of moving ride vehicles. Oh boy. So the ride vehicle thing, I can understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Universal's very safety oriented nowadays. Their restraints are crazy. By the way, they're much more restrictive than maybe other restraints that you see for similar or like attractions by other proprietors. So I get that, but well, this is where it becomes a little bit more Orwellian, let's say. In an application originally filed in 2022 with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and then recently updated this year, Universal has named the technology an Amusement Park Interactive Guidance System. Oh, that's friendly. This application is still pending and has not yet been granted a patent as of this writing. But in broadest terms, the application describes a technology that would be an amusement park monitoring system comprised of sensor devices configured to acquire data related to one or more individuals within a theme park, a memory storing instructions, and a processor. So that's something. The technology would keep records of acceptable parameters for guest behavior, and when specific people are detected, by the way, specific people, acting outside of these acceptable levels, an action is taken. This could be accomplished by simple things like automatically warning the guests via a loudspeaker, or more harsher punishments like expulsion from the park. And so part of how this works is that they would actually develop a guest profile on you, and they would track you within the park and see, if you follow within those parameters, and if you don't, those things would be added to your guest profile later on, and could actually impact not just your current visit, but visits later. Since the document explaining how a new type of technology would work, part of it explains other components in addition to sensors. One of these components would be the storage of data. The examples given how certain individuals could have a guest profile on file, which tracks and logs their actions during their visit to the park, and this information could be used to determine whether it's important to track their actions when they return to the park at a later date as well. So,
this all sounds on the up and up. Nothing bad has ever happened from tracking people like this.
Yeah, it's fine.
I just keep picturing them rolling out the ED 209 from RoboCop. Return to line, second request.
Yeah, it gets kind of dicey here, because we know that Universal's investing heavily in face tracking and facial recognition technologies, and I know those would be used for entry not only to the park itself, but also to the various lands and so forth that you might actually find within, let's say, Epic Universe, for example. So I know that they're really implementing those processes right now. Well, now you're linking them up with potentially a guest profile that records not only your facial recognition and your ticket, but also your actions. I mean, I could see a world in which, perhaps, depending on how you act, or maybe how influenced you are as a person, that involves social media as well, maybe certain things happen to you that maybe don't happen for others. I can see disproportionate use of that whole thing right there. I could also see, I don't know, the examples given here talk about how if you're in an inebriated state, let's say, that maybe based on your actions, they don't actually sell you more alcohol and so forth. And maybe, I don't know, does it have a negative impact on your vacation then at the time? Does it have a negative impact on your vacation, in the future? I'm not really sure. But those are kind of the examples that they list here in the patent itself, using a combination of like temperature sensors to monitor your temperature, your whether or not you're doing something out of the parameters. I don't know, guys. This can get dicey.
This is the worst idea I've ever heard in my life. The arguments that it would cause, the glitches that would cause a lot of undue stress for a lot of people, the inevitable time where someone's like, man, this system's racist. Like, all of it would happen.
Oh, man.
It would all happen.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Agreed completely.
Right about that.
People say that red light cameras are racist. I mean, it would happen. It would 100% happen.
That's true.
Nolan? One belief I tend to have is, whenever, because I hate the implementation of cameras a lot in the modern society. And whenever I see them trying to put, cameras on like road construction areas or in street areas, I'm like, how about we put those cameras in the same rooms of those politicians and such that approve those and see what kind of activities we find going on in there. I'm sure there won't be anything questionable. But who the heck is going to go to a theme park and is like, man, I really want to go to Disney World or Universal or Busch Gardens, wherever. But, I just am so worried about those troublesome teenagers, jumping the lines and stuff. No one decides to not go over something like this. They talk themselves out of it if the price is too high, if the quality's not there. This is just something so they can give more control on stuff like that, make certain managers they have happy, and it's dystopian. I hate it. And if we let them streamline this, it's going to become staring in the parks, and we can't just accept it. We need something to where it's like, no, like laws need to be passed in order to stop this sort of thing. It's disgusting.
And here's the thing. Now, maybe you might be okay with line jumping, line skipping, inebriated state. We've seen Epcot recently, right? We can get behind maybe some of those things. But it goes even further. Tracking a guest allows the system to keep track of how long they may remain in a specific area as well. This can determine if someone is loitering in front of an attraction, spending too much time in a restaurant, or hanging out in a bar for too long. Again, another factor in tracking whether someone is drinking too much at the park. Again, it's like, wow, I mean, you're going to track how long I'm actually in a restaurant and for how long? Perhaps, hey, maybe I have some heat problems and I want to go ahead and, cool off inside for an extended period of time. Will that be used against me as part of this this tracking system or guest profile?
Yeah,
perhaps.
I went into the Minions Cafe, ordered lunch, and then sat there working on that Park Place article. So are they going to track that and be like, come after, send the Universal Gestapo after me? Are they minions? Are they going to be like, you go now?
Yeah. Are you? I mean, well, and are you going to have maybe a credit score? Social, try not to get the YouTube censors on us too bad, but you can kind of see where this all kind of goes right here. And it's Universal's made a lot of steps in terms of increasing guest satisfaction and doing things like the guest like and so forth. But this, I think, is in the wrong direction. I think I was talking with Theme Park Wizard, actually, and he was theorizing, well, you could actually use a system like this in order to get live action surveys. For example, you could actually measure the amount of smiles on guests' faces when people actually leave an attraction or after they've had a food item at some restaurant or something, and you could actually track how satisfied people might be with your product without actually having to survey them. I suppose there's potential for that, but I think of how the system might be abused, especially when it comes to Comcast, who, is one of the largest ISPs in the United States, and how, we've seen the propagation of information, take the form of, hey, it starts here, but then it ends up here, like the arbitration case, for example, where Disney Plus and how it interacted with the parks and so forth. I just see this being misused at a certain point, but maybe that's just me.
Vash, don't you realize you just described basically horror movie? It's like, here, we're going to take a look at how many smiles are on the guests' faces. This is creepy.
It's a dystopian nightmare. If Disney was doing this, we'd be calling for their heads.
I do agree with you.
It's not okay. It's absolutely horrible. If this ever rolls out, I will not go to Universal.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like Vash had mentioned in the beginning, is that, hey, if it's used for rides, I get it. You don't want people jumping off your ride while it's going. Sure. That's not a good idea. But look, Disney has cameras all over the parks and inside the rides. They're constantly monitoring, what people are doing and whatnot. But they're not, recording it. They're not, saving it to AI technology. It's not giving you a score. They're just keeping their park safe and trying to make sure that everyone's doing what they're supposed to, and something's out of ordinary, obviously they'll they try to quietly discreetly take care of it, and they can't always, obviously. To me, that's totally fine. I'm fine with that, but for them to say, hey, we've got this new technology, it's gonna be great. Hey, if it's gonna if they want to do facial recognition to get you into the park, because obviously that fingerprint thing never works for me either, fine, whatever. If they want to do it for the rides, fine. But everything else, forget it. They can track your credit card and see what you're spending in the shops. They can track all sorts of things. They don't need to track me around the park and where I go, what I do, every single
whether
day
you're
of the day.
smiling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or frowning. You
or
know,
maybe you're a big spender and certain things happen for you that don't happen for others.
Yeah,
Hope
exactly.
they don't hide like a taser in the globe, like whenever your frown gets too big, like it just shoots like.
Yeah, exactly.
You
You know, and I'll agree with you. There are cameras in the parks right now, but like you said, you know, they don't combine that with machine learning or AI. At least I haven't heard
Right.
reports of them doing that right now. And when you talk about a guest profile and tracking in that and to that granular level, to that degree, it starts, I think, making me feel uncomfortable. And usually I'm fairly forgiving on some of this stuff.
I'm just trying to like picture like the thought process behind the development. You see, Penny the Platypus, every time I go on a theme park attraction, the camera misses my face. Now the camera will be on everyone's face at all times.
Oh boy.
Okay, Dr. Doof.
We have now entered the world of sitcom and parody. Oh boy, not so good right there. So I thought that was a very interesting story, one that kind of went under the radar, and I was like, why is nobody talking about this story? Because it definitely has implications for a lot of people visiting the parks that they love so dearly, but also have a more maybe liberty mindset right there. But you know who's also got, I'm sure, a liberty mindset and who is awesome and not dystopian at all? Well, it happens to be Nolan Thunder. Nolan, where can the good people find you at home?
Well, you can find me at this channel you're seeing on this beautiful screen right here. I cover a lot of lost media and video game mysteries. There's a lot of cool, creepy urban legends about artificial intelligence, films lost to time, and all sorts of urban legends and hoaxes throughout the many years of video games. If you want to see a series that's a mix of documentary, horror, and even some cheesy comedy in there, I recommend checking out my series Lost in the Files. It's on my YouTube channel right there, Nolan Thunder. And if you like my opinions, you can also catch me on That Gameplays over on YouTube. I'm there with Marvin. We talk about video games and all the cool news. And I'm also going to be on Toontown this Thursday for the nighttime stream at 8 o'clock. It'll be a lot of fun.
Hopefully, as long as I have power, Nolan. As long as
he's not swept away in the hurricane, we're gonna have the show.
Yeah, we do wish everybody a very safe couple of days because man, oh man, this one looks pretty big right here. But you know who's also pretty? I tried and can't do it. Well, somebody here is a personal friend of mine, and I'm so glad that they made the time here to join us right here. Marvin, where can the good people find you? And what you got going on at Toontown TV?
Head on over to Toontown TV. We just had a new video drop. 30 or 40 minutes ago. We got 2 daily videos up there, 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. We typically go up or a little bit beforehand. We've also got Toonie Talk TV on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Also over, if you're a wrestling fan, check out Toontown Wrestling, our sister channel, where tonight we've got Toonie Talk Wrestling. We're going to be talking about NXT and Dynamite going head to head tonight, watching along with it. Also, I'm on That Gameplays with Nolan and Culture Casino and all the others. Vash, I should also tell you, Disney has officially announced that it is closing. Hollywood Studios will close tomorrow at 1 p.m. for the hurricane. Magic Kingdom and Disney Springs will close at 2.
Do we have an article on that park, Blake?
I've got a WW Magic article on it. That was the only one I could find. It just broke like within the hour.
Well,
so
let me pull it up actually, because that's some pretty big news
I just
right
sent
there.
it to you. Yeah, I just sent it to you.
Okay. Gotcha. All right, let's make sure we get the information out there. That way people know, because some of us I know follow us for up-to-date to-the-minute news coverage right here. Very much apologize. I did miss this. Walt Disney World announces park closures due to Hurricane Milton right here 56 minutes ago. So yes, within the hour. And it looks like in anticipation of Hurricane Milton's approach, Walt Disney World Resort has announced theme park closures for Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. I know a lot of people were a little bit miffed that Disney hadn't announced something earlier because, well, it's, a lot of cast members are involved. We're talking about 80,000 cast members that could be impacted by this. It's a big story. Disney's Animal Kingdom and Disney's Hollywood Studios will close at 1 p.m. on Wednesday. Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and Disney Springs will close at 2 p.m. So that's some big news right there. Potentially additional closures might actually happen, impacting Mickey's Not So Scary. It looks like. Didn't they also cancel reservations for tomorrow? Or
I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay.
What's going to be interesting to see is if it's going to be closed on Thursday and or Friday, with how much damage happens. Because I don't think we're supposed to get. It's not supposed to hit until tomorrow at around 8 p.m. here. So I think you're going to see. I can't imagine a world in which they open on Thursday.
Okay. Yeah. I can agree with that, and it really depends on what the cleanup might be, whether or not they're able to clean up any of these parks at all, or if things are still going on Thursday as well. But this is big stuff right here. If you're a cast member, now you know, and obviously make appropriate changes to plans. And if you're a visitor, well, now you know as well for those same purposes. Please be safe, everybody. This is a big Category 5 storm here. This is, I mean, if you're in if you're in the impacted areas like Tampa, for example, definitely be on the lookout, and make preparations now. That's for sure. Everybody will be in our prayers over here at that park place. That's for sure. Bob, I know you've got a ton of stuff right here, and I very much appreciate you joining us for the show. I know I can't transition my way out of this, but I will say I know you're an amazing friend of mine, and the fact that you've dedicated so much time to joining us on T3PO the way you have every single week. I know it takes a tremendous level of commitment, so thank you so much for doing that. Amazing friend of the channel, amazing friend of the That Park Place Network. What do you got going on? I'm Barry Place 28.
Wow, that is quite the intro. I like that, or outro, I should say. So, guys, I am going to be at Disneyland tomorrow night, and I'm looking forward to streaming over there. So please come hang out with me. Usually about 7 p.m. My time here in California, so I know that's about 10 p.m. for everyone on the East Coast. And then Friday, I will be with my wife at the Queen Mary's Dark Harbor haunt, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I haven't been there in a few years, and it'll be my first time streaming there. Hopefully, since I used to work there, I'm hoping that the cell signal works pretty good inside the ship, but we will see. And then on Sunday, I'm actually going to be on Pete McDevitt's show. He's going to interview me, but I'm hoping after that, I'm going to run over to Disneyland to actually be at the park as well. But that is tentative at the moment. But also, thank you so much for having me on the show. And by the way, I'm a big gamer. So anytime Nolan and Marvin, you need another guest, let me know, because I'd be more than happy to jump on that game place as well. So
sure thing.
But
Absolutely.
also, I just want to say to anyone who's in Florida, Marvin, and everyone in the chat who's living over there, please be safe. We'll keep you in our thoughts and prayers, and hope that everything goes well. It's really sad to see what happened with Helene, especially after it turned into a tropical storm. There's a ton of damage, and this is going to stay as a hurricane level 5, it looks like. So that's kind of crazy. So everyone stay safe, be well, and thank you again for having me on the show.
Absolutely. And stay tuned, folks. You will be redirected to Mr. H. Thusly on this channel here. We've got Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you. We just had a very amazing show talking about all things MGM, the history of Metro Goldwyn Mayer Studios, now part of Amazon, which is unfortunate. But hey, they had a golden age. They had a very interesting, prolific era. And if you want to learn all about that, also too, the case that changed Hollywood forever, the guy who may have put MGM into the ground, well, you need to tune in for that show. That is for sure. So, hey, look, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on in the next couple of days. And if you need a breather of any of that content right there, and if you want to, escape into worlds of entertainment, well, we definitely have the prescription for you in the form of content on all of our various channels. So I very much appreciate your support. We also have the Genre Guys, which Lou, which starred in earlier part of the show, was also a part of. We have their show covering the Ocean's 11 that just recently took place here. And if you want to, see Genre Guys as soon as they are released, you can go over to WWE Pro's channel and go into the Members Only tab and find them all there. So that's what we got going on. Thank you so much for joining us as part of today's program. We have some amazing stuff in store. I know we're going to be doing some special stuff for Halloween. And like we have said here today, and we'll continue to say, please, everybody stay safe. Everybody on the East Coast there, I know, the storms and the hurricanes have really rocked that area. And please take everything as serious as you can. Make decisions for your family. And stay safe the best you can. So I will go out on that note. Thank you so much for joining us today. And, enjoy Mr. H. We'll see you then. Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.